So today I'm going to talk about the changes to the flexible working request arrangements. Well, flexible working requests are requests for a change in working hours or location. This could include reducing hours, alternative start and finish times, working from home, or even sharing their job with someone else. Now, employers should be aware that the government has confirmed its proposal for the right to make flexible working requests a day one of employment right. That means that employees from day one of their employment with their employer will have the right to request to work flexibly. Now, previously, employees would have to have worked for their employer for 26 weeks before gaining the statutory right to make a flexible working request. But I need to emphasise that this is a right to request and not a right to flexible working. Now, if an employer proposes to reject a request, it will be required to consult with the employee to explore the options available before rejecting the request. Two requests can be made in a 12-month period. Employers will need to respond to the request within a 2-month time frame. Now, this is a change from the current 3-month time frame that exists at the moment. The government proposes that employees will no longer be required to set out in their request how the effect of their request to work flexibly might impact on their employer's business. For example, the impact on volume or productivity, or the impact on colleagues. Well, there are 8 reasons that employers can provide in their refusal, and they remain the same as they have been since the right was first introduced back in 2003, 20 years ago. Now, as a reminder, these are, firstly, planned structural changes. Secondly, the burden of additional costs. Thirdly, quality or standards will suffer. Next, that they won't be able to recruit additional staff. Performance will suffer, or employers won't be able to reorganise work amongst existing staff, or that they will struggle to meet customer demand. And finally, lack of work during the periods that the employee proposes to work. An employee can bring a claim in the employment tribunal if they believe that the request that they have made has not been dealt with correctly by their employer. And an employment tribunal in that case will look at A, whether the employer's procedure was reasonable, B, whether the employer took the request seriously, C, whether the employer's decision was based on correct facts, and D, whether the reason for the refusal falls within one of the 8 business reasons outlined earlier. Now, if the employment tribunal finds any failings on any of those factors, then it can order the employer to reconsider the request and in so doing make a declaration of what factually might have happened. And they can also make an award of compensation of up to 8 weeks' pay, or £4,568 currently. And these rates change in April every year, so this could well go up. Now, as an employee has a statutory right to make a flexible working request, if the employee is then treated less favourably or subjected to some kind of detrimental treatment, such as a refusal of a holiday request, or lack of promotion, or lack of a pay rise when others have received pay rises, because they've made this request, then the employment tribunal will consider this as a detrimental treatment. And the employment tribunal has then power to award compensation to the employee concerned. And furthermore, if the employee is then dismissed because they've made a flexible working request, then the employer will be held to account in the employment tribunal for what would be regarded as automatic unfair dismissal, without the necessary 2 years' service. Therefore, it's important for the flexible working request process to be completed correctly, exploring alternatives and making detailed notes of any discussion with the employee about their request. Well, there are no firm dates yet, but we know that the government are going to be introducing legislation around this, and therefore we recommend that employers start considering the changes and to adapt their processes to implement these changes. It's important, especially in larger businesses, to follow a written flexible working policy, if they have one. This will ensure consistency of approach for managers considering the flexible working request, and will also manage the expectation of the employees. Employers do need to keep in mind, though, that each request should be dealt with on an individual basis. Employees will have a wide variety of reasons for flexible working requests, and some will have protected characteristics, such as, for example, disability, or, for example, female employees who are more likely to need flexible working because of childcare responsibilities. And finally, my message to employers are: ensure that you are clear in the hiring process and working arrangements. This will assist in setting the expectation of the working arrangements, reducing the amount of requests in the first few months of employment. These terms should be set out clearly in the contract and in the offer letter, although you will be unable to stop any new employee exercising their day one right to request flexible working.